it all. And we are live. Welcome one and all to this, another Wednesday, another Hub Games Hangout with the sweetest boy you know. Hello, that's me, Michael, hello. Over there, the glorious Rory. Hello, Rory, how are you?
Hello, everybody.
There you go. And live, direct, from the colonies, the United States of America. The only, Cole and Will from the Drive Check podcast. Let's kick off with Cole. Cole, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm excellent.
Lovely. And Will, putting us all to shame, the smartest person in the room.
Hardly. Although I will say I'm one thing that mystifies me is I always look at you and Rory as adults, and I am honestly the oldest person on this video chat right now. And it's like, how did that happen?
You're like Uncle Will.
I'm not that much older.
Hey, papa, ooh, papa. So, yeah, you're not that much older than us.
No.
Still.
And also, I mean, bless you for thinking even of me as an adult. Good Lord, that's just something a lot of people just don't consider.
I'm still finding my way in life.
Yeah, I think it makes it. It's just that it's highlighting to you, Will, that you have to be an adult too. Not have to be, but you are an adult, whether you choose to kind of fulfill that role or not. Like in my head, I'm still 27. Like pretty much everything I do is from the position of I stopped aging when I got to 27. Like my body got older, but my mind kind of stayed around there.
I understand that.
Well, thanks for that, Ken. Michael is a child mind in a very aged body that is broken. I mean, if you're going to sum up me in one sentence, I'm in this picture and I don't like it. It's very, very true. Apparently, Cole, you have a cool room.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a shared office with a lot of junk everywhere.
Cole, that is Wesley Welch, the longest running supporter of Drive Check. He goes, It said David, but his name
That's
is
what
Wesley.
threw me off.
Yeah.
Okay.
That dude has been like our supporter since day one. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Very,
Excellent.
very
We'll have to get his input then.
Oh yes, we can learn all of the dark, nasty secrets from the early days of Drive Check. All that, you know. So get ready to spill it, Mr. Welch. We are primed and ready. Well, let's do some introductions before we kick off everything. Will, who are you and why are you here?
I have no idea.
What's either of them? Christ, that's worrying.
Well, I guess I'm here because I host podcasts a lot. I've been doing the Pokemon one longest, and that's probably what I'm most well known for. But we're here to talk about Drive Check and Cardfight Vanguard, which I had the realization we hit our 5-year anniversary a couple of weeks ago, and Cole or I both we forgot that it was our 5-year anniversary, missed it completely.
Like any great couple.
But had the realization that now our program is half as old as the game that we talk about because Vanguard just did its 10-year anniversary. So
wow.
Crazy.
I am the oldest Cardfight Vanguard content creator in existence.
And proud of it.
Yes, I am.
Just be careful, Will. That kind of makes you a target.
For somebody older, please come along.
No, I meant someone taking you out, so then the next person can be like the oldest content creator.
I went with the positive of like, hey, there's somebody older out there who could be doing this, and you're like, no, Will must die.
God, thanks for making it bleak, Rory. Cheers, mate. God. Apparently Rory has plans. Yeah, nothing will stop him from his dark goals.
I just know what the players are like.
What, murderous? Cripes. Maybe we should get into this game.
This isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! Here. It's not that bad.
That's true.
Oh, shots have been fired. We're only like 2 minutes in. Meanwhile, also over there, Cole, who are you and why are you here?
I am Cole. I'm the 2/3 or 1/3 of Drive Check. And
what?
I don't know why I'm here.
His math, he was not hired for his math skills. So.
No, God, no. Barely for anything else, but I have a nice smile, I've been told. And a loud dog.
Wow. That's okay.
That's on all of your business cards. Cole Herman McCool, a nice smile and a loud dog. That'd actually be a really nice intro for a new sort of like radio show that you did.
Yeah, I could do that.
Totally up for that. So, Rory, do you want to sort of like kick off our start bit?
Sure, yeah, but I figured there's going to be loads to talk about in the main content, so I will try and keep it as short as possible. So this is where it's like this is the rare time I get to talk to other people about games, so I tend to kind of like go on for ages. But I will try and keep it focused. This week, I actually got to play 2 new games, like not even like revisiting old stuff, which I did play Marvel Champions and managed to beat Ultron finally with Scarlet Witch, but it's kind of a half win because I misplayed, I think, a rule in it, but also made my life difficult with that rule. So I'm kind of counting it as a half win, but so that was kind of satisfying finally after playing with every single hero, like base hero. Scarlet Witch finally took down Ultron. So then I got to play Micro Macro Crime City, published by Spielwiese and also distributed by Pegasus Spiel. Really fun. It's like Where's Wally, the crime solving game. So it's kind of a visual black and white map, and you're given cards that ask you to kind of, show you a picture of a person who's being murdered, and you have to find that picture, and then it'll say, what were they doing just before they were murdered, and you have to find them on the map, like, so spatially and temporally you're moving around the map to try and trace the path or the journey of that character and pick up clues along the way as to who might have murdered them, what their motive might have been. And it starts off easy, but then stuff starts really kind of jumping around the map. And you really have to kind of work hard at it. It's super addictive. It's like every time you complete one, you want to do another. And there's 16 cases in the game. And we got to, I think, about 13 before we had to stop. And the last few are quite difficult. So they took up almost as much time as like the first 6 or 7 that we were playing. But some of the contents, like watching a review, they were saying, it's suitable for age plus. It's not really in terms of the content. It's like adult themes in terms of like kind of murder, mistresses, stuff like that. But the characters all look really cute. It's just this black and white drawing. And so there was some families that I was going to give it to, but I'll have to give it with a kind of a caveat and say, okay, think you should play this. And it's definitely worth, if you're an adult, absolutely don't even think about it. Buy it and have a blast playing it with people. Like you're climbing over the table, trying to like look at the far end of the map because it takes up a whole table when it's out.
How big is it, Rory? It's a good sort of like, 3 foot by 2 foot or even more than that?
It would fit like an IKEA table. So like a dinner table, it's going to be spread out across the whole thing.
Okay.
And that's what I really like is you're climbing across each other or asking someone, can you pick up the trail and follow it over that way? Or someone saying, I'll look over here while I look over there to try and figure things out. But cool. Yeah, the game deserves to be a really big hit. And ideally followed up with more family-friendly versions of it.
Spiel des Jahres nominee for sure. The amount of people who are going super excited over it, and the amount of people I know who are clamoring to try and find a copy of it. It's going to do very, very, very well.
And then just very quickly for me, also tried out a game rental service and rented Newsford by Uwe Rosenberg. Played it once in the solo mode, and it was. I'm generally not a huge fan of Euro games in terms of the thinking and planning. More importantly, that's required. But it's definitely from a solo game, it's nice and gentle and interesting comboing happening with it as well. So I need to give it a couple of more plays to see how it works. But definitely one my family would be more inclined to play with me.
Cool. Will, anything thrilling hitting your table. Where are you, like locationally? Because I don't know what your lockdown situation and stuff
I mean,
is.
that was like hilarious to me when you said the colonies, because neither Cole nor I live in a former colony. I'm in Minneapolis now. So I'm in Minnesota.
Minnesota, as
yeah,
everybody else will say to you when they hear that.
It's fantastic because my accent is so not
Minnesota.
Midwestern. And people hate my accent, but boy, it's certainly not from this place. No, it's just me and my cat.
Who would hate your accent?
Cole,
them to me.
I'll
take them out.
I will point you to YouTube commenters. You can find them. They specifically
really
roast me for the way that I talk. It's just like what's it? And I'll say this: we're PG-13, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I have grown used to the homophobia in the YouTube comments, but it's just like, why do you come after me for the way that I talk? It's just like I can't do anything about it.
It's because the homophobic comments didn't have an impact.
So now,
like, oh my god, we need to figure out something else.
Yeah, they know how to get me.
We have to find the chink in the armor somewhere, and it's like, oh, apparently that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, being up here in Minneapolis, I mean, before the last time I saw Rory, right? We would pretty regularly go to Fantasy Flight Games because they have a big gaming center. They have the lending library and just a lot of space for that kind of stuff. That we haven't been able to do that in quite some time. So, I mean, Cole and I run like a Skype league, a Discord league. So you can do Discord video for doing trading card games. So we play a lot of Vanguard doing that. And of course, non-tabletop, but the new Monster Hunter came out on Friday, and I am an absolute freak for Monster Hunter. So I've just gone deep into that game so far.
I have been watching a Twitch friend, let's call it that, Mark Buckus, who's been playing. He played it on Friday. He did like a nice sort of like intro stream, and I just went, the palicos in it are the greatest things of all time. Like slamming hammers into like buckets of mochi and serving them up to you, and it's just like, please stop singing at me, but you are delightful.
I watch the little like singing thing when they make your bunny dango, is what they're called, every single time. Every single time, it's the same cut scene every time, and I watch it over and over again. I love it.
Yeah, but it's charming as heck. So you know, it's it's absolutely delightful. I don't know if I'm going to get on the Monster Hunter train. I don't know if I've got the.
It takes a certain kind of person who finds joy in going out, killing something, carving it up, and then wearing it for the next time you go out to kill its brother, right?
That's Will written all over it, right there.
Every single day of the week, absolutely.
Yes, the Minneapolis Skinner. That's what they call him.
Hardly.
That's when we get the super dark turn of the show. Cole, you've been playing anything cool, interesting, wonderful?
I've been looking more into the Digimon trading card game and doing that.
Digimon.
You know what, Will? Okay, mechanically it's solid. The art's cool. I don't really care about Digimon, but I enjoy the game.
I don't care about Digimon. You got that right.
I think Digimon is a better cartoon than Pokemon, and you can fight me. I
mean, cartoon, yes. Everything else, no.
I'm intrigued by what's it that you like about the Digimon game? Because obviously that rollout has taken some time, Cole.
Oh,
what's appealing on it?
That the whole rollout is turning me off of the game. I'm not gonna lie. And then like the whole secondary market, or honestly the primary market, how hard it is to find anything is also like really off-putting. But I love how it's a shared mana system, basically. So it's like you're playing tug of war, basically. So you play a card that costs like 7 energy or whatever, and it goes to your opponent's side, and that stops your turn. And they have whatever from 0 to whatever extra that you give them to make something work. It's a really interesting mind game of how that works. And I really enjoy so you play a card on top of a card and you evolve it, kind of like the Pokemon or Mutation in Magic if you played it during the Ikoria block. But so you stack a card on top, so it gets an inheritable skill for every card that's underneath it. Some have skills and some don't. But so you can stack up and make your own Digimon like as strong as you can. It's kind of fun making your own like combinations and stuff like that.
That's neat.
Yeah.
So you can kind of carry through an ability from the one below.
Yep.
So that's the proper way to evolve a character.
Oh yeah. It's really clever.
That's just like a tucked card underneath, or
yeah.
Okay.
So the very bottom of the card has a specific effect, and you can only see it when you stack on top. Well, you can see it when you stack on top. So it's got the main effect, and it's got any additional effects of the cards underneath it are listed down below. So that's a really cool. That's
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does a lot of cool things. But man, just getting the product. I have one deck. And I've sold all my extra cards, and I only will have that one deck because I cannot afford nor care to keep up with that kind of a market right now. So I'm liking that. And then I'm getting really into Pokemon again, and just Magic.
Battle Styles.
Me.
Battle Styles got you.
Yeah, dude. Urshifu VMAX, Rapid Strike.
Pass.
All about it. All about it, man.
This is where you three are all like you two at the bottom, like you're okay, but Rory knows Pokemon way more than I do. I've played it a little bit.
I'm so out of the loop though. I haven't played since Forbidden
Light.
Forbidden Light.
Yeah, in Sun and Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the key differences between Cole, there's many differences between Cole and I, but one of the key differences in the things that we enjoy, right? Especially like in card games or gaming type stuff. Cole likes fighting, right? He likes kung fu. He likes what are those like the Japanese kung fu costume dudes that Ultraman.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. There you see. I could call it out. I know exactly what's going on here, right? Thing. And he really likes that like point-to-point combat concept, which Urshifu really like. Is the example of that. Where I'm more of a like stealth, I'd rather like poison you secretly and 6 turns later find out you're dead and you didn't even see me attack anything, right? And it's like
so it's not the Minnesota Skinner, it's more the Minnesota Poisoner. I can't see what the MO of your future reign of terror is going to be. Gotcha.
But like for me, like an alternate win condition is what is my key go-to in any kind of a game. I always want to find like the weird way of winning rather than the straightforward. I just hit you in the face for 50,000 whatevers. I like my big numbers. Yeah. So that's kind of my thing.
I think I would err towards will, but I never achieve it because I'm never quite able to figure it out. Or else someone, it's like I'm sneaking along in the background and someone just turns to me and goes like, Rory, what are you doing? And I'm like, I thought you didn't see me. It's like my plan gets uncovered every single time.
Yep.
I mean, I would veer more towards sort of Cole's style of play, just heavy hitting because I'm a simpleton. And
same.
Not saying that Cole's a simpleton, but he has just admitted it himself, so it's fine. But it's all good. No, the reason I asked like what everybody else has been playing because I've literally played nothing all week. Although Rory did give me something fun today, which is the Moon Knight cards for Marvel Champions.
Definitely one of my top 10 Marvel characters. Absolutely. Even though he's got the most ridiculous concept, for some reason, just the mystery behind the Moon Knight was like so captivating for me.
I've been reading through the cards. I'm very excited about it. It looks a lot of fun. It looks like you can literally throw any aspect cards at it as well, which is great because I can just, I think I'll go for sort of like absolute aggression, 100%. We'll see how that goes. Badly will be the answer because I'm terrible at Marvel Champions. But it's going to be fun playing it. It's
really interesting because that one benefits from you changing your identity more. So the more you change identity, the more powerful he gets. So it kind of shows that kind of him slipping in between personas as well, which I think is a really neat concept.
I want to see some really weird Marvel Champions fan decks. I want to see Rom, the weird robot from the 80s that I read like 2 comics of and was terrified of. So I have no idea what the character's about, and I don't think they even have rights to make any Rom comics anymore, but I think it'd still be great to see that deck. Anyway,
in terms of Ultraman, Cole, have you tried Monster Apocalypse?
I have not yet. I've heard good things about it, but I have not tried it yet.
Well, it would scratch that itch for fighting.
Yeah.
And it actually has that kind of that tug of war you're talking about.
Mhm.
It's not with your opponent, but it's with your own resources. So you're basically moving dice from your monster pool to your unit pool.
Okay.
And as it's going backwards and forwards, if you have a bit in both pools, when it becomes your turn, you can choose which you want to activate. So it's like if you move all your dice to one pool by spending them all, your opponent knows, oh yeah, you have to activate your units next. Whereas if you kind of keep a bit in both pools, you might have less available actions on your turn, but then your opponent is like, ooh, hang on, well, maybe Cole could activate his monsters or his units, and has to kind of think about that when they're planning.
Yeah.
I mean, the main downside for me is just the expense of that game is crazy. They're resin models going about $30 per model for the monsters.
Yeah, so that's when you only buy the cool ones then.
You have to buy 1/4 and just kind of stick to it.
Oh yeah.
Or be like me and use all your models, repurpose all your models from version 1 of the game.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ken in the chat suggests we could have a Squirrel Girl, but it's just a green magic deck. I don't get that joke.
Because squirrels are green in Magic. And they
I don't know
swarm.
I know Squirrel. That's a hard one for me to say. Squirrel Girl is a relatively recent hero. I don't know what
she's a cult favorite
power is that they do.
All I know is she's one of the most powerful people in the MCU. That's it.
Really?
Yeah, I know that she destroyed Galactus once.
Okay.
That's the only thing I know.
And I mean, green is known for ramp, right?
Yeah.
So that's green is one of the most powerful colors in Magic, just because it can get resources faster than anybody else.
There you go. The more you know, folks. All right.
The less you understand.
The less you understand. Christ,
I think that's true.
Right. Let's steer this ever given of the conversation away from the side of the canal of discussion and onto the waterway of talking. I don't know. That metaphor went very weird.
The Suez
Rory.
Canal, sort of.
No. Wait, it's clear now. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, Rory, why are we here this evening?
I don't know. Well, I mean, it's kind of weird time-wise. It's a year since we all hung out together, and when I was visiting Asmodee in Minneapolis, and we got to play lots of Cardfight Vanguard, and I kind of reignited my love for the game. On my trip home through New York, I bought all the cards I needed to make a deck, got home to lockdown. And pretty much haven't. Well, I had one more trip, but I haven't played it since playing it with Michael last week. So my World Paladin deck is sitting over there with the Dimension Police deck that you gave me the year before. No, but 2 or 3 years ago. Cool.
Yeah, the Nova Grappler one. That's right. Yeah.
So in terms of asking you on, I just thought it would be kind of interesting to kind of talk about TCGs and center it around Cardfight Vanguard, especially with the new game coming out. So kind of tonight, I wanted to chat about how you kind of got into TCGs, kind of what you enjoy about them, how you talk about them in terms of the Drive Check podcast, and also the Pokemon one. And then talking about kind of Cardfight Vanguard, what excites you about that game, what you really like about it, and particularly for people who are watching, why they might care about Overdress coming, what that's doing.
Boy, that's so much. I mean,
yeah.
I'm supposed to get my second COVID shot in like a couple hours here.
Short.
Okay, I'm
to answer yes or no to every single question.
Well, I think a good thing, like a brief history. Like, what is everybody's histories with TCGs? So, like Cole, what's your first one? What's your favorite and all that good stuff?
All right. So my first one was Pokemon.
Sorry,
and
before you jump in, I'm going to clarify: trading card games, TCGs.
Yeah, trading card games. Yes.
People.
So my first was Pokemon. This was when I was 5 years old. My cousin gave me a bunch of cards, and they're like my favorite things ever. I still have a lot of them, actually. They're right back there. And then I never learned how to play. I just collected them. I always wanted to learn how to play, but I didn't have anyone who wanted to play with me. So I build a deck and get really excited and try to coerce my brother or sister to play with me. And they're like, no, I'm not doing that. So couldn't do that. And then I moved to Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that's what all the cool kids were playing. This was like elementary, middle school, whatever. And I was playing that.
Cool elementary school kids.
Yeah. So I did that for a little bit. I still kind of keep tabs on Yu-Gi-Oh, but I really don't like that game anymore. And then I played Magic a little bit at that same time and a little bit later in high school. And then I picked Vanguard up actually out of high school. At a Walmart of all places. If that means nothing to anybody, but Vanguard for a little bit was sold at Walmart and whatnot. And it was very rare to find anything because I found an old starter deck that's probably 3 years old at that time. And I don't know when I picked it up. So I already had like a really old, really old starter deck. And I just started playing with that. And then I talked to Will and then we started the podcast. And then from there.
Was it my fault that you started playing Vanguard?
Correct.
I know a lot of people blame it on me. Yeah.
Okay. It is your fault. I've spent so much money because of you. Yeah, and then I'm at the point where I like collecting old card games and I like trying new ones constantly. So I get really excited about a lot of games. There's a lot that I want to play right now.
I definitely think we should cover the joys of getting into a dead TCG in a bit. That'd be cool. Will, what about you? What's your story?
Well, I fell into it with I mean, obviously, to start with, trading card games didn't exist when I was a youth. So, right, it wasn't until I was in college that that Magic became the preliminary trading card game out there, and I was way too cool for Magic at that point. So, I fell into a bad crowd in about 2012 and started playing competitive Pokemon. Played that for about. What are you laughing at?
The bad crowd, the bad side of town.
No.
Playing Pokemon.
No, it's just because I started doing the Pokemon podcast, and then as part of that, just to hang out with the folks that I was doing that podcast with, because they're actually based in like Milwaukee. Actually, most of them were in Milwaukee at that time. I would go to regional Pokemon competitions and play the TCG or the video game VGC at those competitions. I liked playing the Pokemon TCG a lot. I liked the mechanics a lot. And obviously I love Pokemon. So I love the cards and the art and everything that comes with it. Unfortunately, the competitive community was really, really toxic, especially towards anyone older than, say, 28. And people just very vocal. People felt very free to make you feel bad for being an older person playing Pokemon at a regional tournament. So I was looking for an exit at later after a year of playing Pokemon TCG, and one of my Pokemon friends mentioned Vanguard and how it was like a newer card game and that they were interested in it. And I just specifically remember him saying, and there's this pink deck, and it's like, I want to get the pink deck because it just looks, funny. So I ordered it off Amazon, and then I also at the same time said, well, let me try to learn Magic because that's the adult trading card game where, Pokemon is the kids trading card game. So I won't have the whole ageism issue. And I went to one of my local game stores in DC at the time, and on Thursday nights, it was supposed to be Learn to Play Magic night. So I went and I was like, hey, why don't you folks teach me how to play Magic? And they said, but you have a Vanguard deck. We'd rather play Vanguard. It's a better game. So they taught me how to play Vanguard, and I got hooked. I started going to weekly Vanguard League in DC. Luckily for me, we call it DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area of the US has one of the best Vanguard communities. just one of the largest and strongest. So there's just a great group of people to teach me how to play and just to consistently play with the same people on a weekly basis. Yeah, and that's kind of what drew me in.
Cool. Rory, I know that you have the occasional penchant for a trading card game. I've seen the giant buckets of them at the office of just cards upon cards upon cards.
Kind of like Will, I was a starving artist living in Galway when Magic came out. I'm trying to think like how I heard about it. Whether I knew the shop first or like I heard about the game and went to the shop. Kind of really friendly owners. Got into Magic initially, and then Vampire, Werewolf, Mech Warrior, Netrunner, Shadow Fist. Like just all of these games were coming out and I was getting like I love trying new things. If people haven't realized that by now, and so I'm not the kind of person who goes really deep into stuff, but I skim along the surface. So I was trying all of these different games. Loved in particular. It was the Call of Cthulhu. I think it was Arkham Horror, the trading card game, the one that had the kind of narrative component to it, which I've never seen a game do since, and I thought it was brilliant, where you had to have certain cards in play and have done certain things to win your game, and you're kind of playing against your opponent. But I learned very quickly about Mr. Suitcase, which Will, I don't know if you ever saw this in the magazine that used to come out with the pricing of all the cards and articles about Magic the Gathering. There was a section on Mr. Suitcase. And it was that person who had enough money to buy all of this stuff. So they had this suitcase of cards. And I quickly realized I was surrounded by them. Like I was a starving artist. I had very little money. I just couldn't compete. And I think that's my history with trading card games, is getting into them and realizing the game escalates beyond me, that people start playing competitively, start introducing competitive decks. And I'm like, this is not fun anymore. And I kind of fall out of it. So those games were kind of early, mid-90s. I think when it came out, I used to look at my nephew who was getting Pokemon cards. That's our age difference, cool. But he only ever collected them for the stats. But I'd want to learn how to play the game, but he wasn't interested in that. Same with Yu-Gi-Oh! My partner's mother used my children, and the kids would have the Yu-Gi-Oh! And I would teach them how to play, and I'd have to buy a deck so I'd understand it to be able to teach it to them, which is my excuse.
Yeah, I understand that one.
And then it was kind of, I think 2012 or 11 when I was starting to earn some money from Rory Story Cubes, and we weren't scraping by. I decided to kind of dip back into Pokemon and give that a try. Well, I'd also played Legends of the Five Rings when I was in Vancouver for a year. Really friendly group over there. Got back into Pokemon. It was Black and White, that set. Teaching myself how to play, and I think I misplayed a rule about the bench, and in doing so, I thought this game is like just doesn't work. It's not fun. It's really simplistic. Because I think I thought you could only have like one Pokemon at a time, and you couldn't be adding energy cards to the ones on the bench at the time. Ooh. So I was like, this just isn't fun, and kind of left it aside. At this then kind of did come back to it in a couple of years' time. With Cardfight Vanguard, I was in Japan for the launch of Rory Story Cubes, and went into a store there that had like all of these trading card games in Japanese, and I was like, oh! And then like Googling each game, and I was going like, this is a Japanese only game, this is a Japanese only game. And I went up to the clerk and said, is there anything here in English? And he pointed to like two sets of games, Vice Schwartz and Cardfight Vanguard. So I picked up a couple of starter decks and a booster box actually for Vice Schwartz, brought them home and started watching the anime to just learn how to play, and played it myself like two-handed to learn how it worked. And I was like, oh, it's got some really neat mechanics, and we'll kind of get into them. But I kind of liked it so much I have this habit of if I want to play a game, I try to build a community around it, so I find people to play with. So I started a league here, managed to persuade the company to actually allow me to run a league, even though I wasn't a retailer. And we built up a really cool community with younger players and older. And it was really great seeing the interaction between, players in their kind of late teens, early 20s, interacting with like 9-10-year-olds. But very quickly, the younger ones dropped off from the league play because it stopped being fun. They were getting hammered in the games. And I don't think I had the wherewithal and the headspace at the time to structure it so that it played better. But I was watching that thing happening again. I was like, oh no, we're kind of losing people. And for Vanguard, I fell off the wagon when it reached a certain point where I just went, these cards have just gotten too complex in terms of their effects and how long, when I just go, you know what, you just resolve your turn and let me know when you're done and tell me how much damage you're doing to me. And I'll just take it. I kind of went, okay, I'm done with that. And that's where I was relearning Pokemon. I went to a How to Play session at San Diego Comic-Con and realized I'd been playing it all wrong before. And my daughters got into it that time. It's when Pokemon Go had just come out. So again, I kind of built up a league in Belfast around that as well. And then I kind of fell off of that because I was doing tons of traveling. I wasn't being consistent with the league. And I was kind of being criticized by the participants for not organizing stuff properly for them. And I was kind of like, I'm done. It's not worth it.
Well, we have one or two listeners in Belfast, don't we, Cole?
I believe so. Or maybe not Belfast, but Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland. I mean, it's only so big.
It's Northern Ireland is basically the size of a standard American city. So
a small American city, yeah. So there's replay games here have been great over the years, and they've regularly got host Cardfight Vanguard and Pokemon leagues, and they've been doing it, and that's about 20 miles away. So we were just hosting it in a more central urban area. But so there is a kind of a strong community for both games. But I just love that back and forth, the dueling aspect of the games. That's the bit I really like. And finding fun combos to play. I like seeing how they fire. So I've kind of transitioned probably more into LCGs because of the cost associated, I think, with trading card games, which is one of the other topics I want to talk about.
Which is also actually like interesting because we want to keep that in mind for a small pivot that Bushiroad is making in the way that they produce Vanguard sets now. But I also want to say it's like that's something that you and I have in common because for a couple of times I went to Gen Con, and Bushiroad is usually at Gen Con, but they're like the only company that doesn't run tournaments. And then I was like, Cole, if they're not going to do a tournament, we're going to do a tournament. So we started running Vanguard tournaments at Gen Con just because Bushiroad wouldn't do it. But also because I hate going to conventions with nothing to do except walk around and spend money. So I was like, let me give myself something to do.
The Drive Check Invitational.
Basically.
That's what it was. Well, we didn't invite anybody. It was like, if you want to sign up, if you want to play Vanguard at Gen Con, we're here for you.
And every time we did it, we filled up our slots.
Nice.
So there's definitely people who are interested. So something to keep in mind.
That's the nice thing about like a trading card game tournament at a convention. You don't have to bring a big box along with you. You could just bring literally a single deck. I know most people would bring like a variety with them because you don't know what you want to play up against, etc. But yeah, it's accessibility in play, and that is a very, very valuable thing to have in a game. Just being able to like whip a deck out of your pocket and boom, away you go, let's play. I'll speedily go through my TCG history. It's very short. I'm probably more along the lines of Rory's skimmer thing. I love me a starter set because I just love getting a game, seeing how it plays, and it's about the tinkering of the ideas for me. So games like the first one I remember sort of like really getting into properly was like the Harry Potter trading card game from the early to mid 2000s. Has some lovely ideas. Played a little bit of Netrunner, blah blah blah. Weisschwarz, got a couple of decks of those as well. My main TCG, as regular watchers will know, was the My Little Pony trading card game, which I still maintain is one of the greatest games of all time.
100% agree with you. We can spend an hour talking about MLP because that.
So let's talk about these folders here, full of cards, binders full of ponies.
Cole has seen, I think, in my closet here, I have a little satchel and binder from the pre-release of the original release of MLP.
Nice. Wow. I had the original, like the first Gen Con deck, and all of the terrifying stuff like that. But that was the game I actually got into, and I actually played and won some tournaments and things. So that was always nice. But every other game, I've very much been a grab a starter set, see how it works, and then probably not really do that much more around it. Danny Brothers in the chat has asked, do any of us play phone/tablet-based TCGs? I played a bit of Hearthstone. I don't know if that would count, but this is like really early day counting. Yeah.
I would count that.
But nothing else really. I like the physicality, to be honest.
Well, Cole, you tried Vanguard Zero. I tried Vanguard Zero, which is the phone-based version of Vanguard. It's a completely different game from the actual card game. But
it uses some of the same mechanics, but it tweaks it to make it mobile friendly. But by doing that, I think it loses a lot of the charm of the game. But it's still going strong, so people like it. Obviously, just not us.
I have actually played a lot of Pokemon on the app because it does a brilliant job of teaching it. I think and keeps you straight. So I would almost train on that by playing, so that I was better when I played in the physical.
World. This is right. My deep knowledge, right? It really says a lot that the company that makes the Pokemon TCG app complained that they're not able to make it better. Because the Pokemon company won't let them. And everybody knows that app is so broken.
It's like there's some cards that come out and they can't actually play them because they break the game, so they ban them instead. And like in paper, they're just like nothing cards. They're not that great, but in online you just can't play it altogether. Also, I hate the way that you obtain cards in the online thing. If you wanted to seriously play it, you have to either buy real product and you get a code card in each for a random booster pack, and then you can buy codes from online, which it's fine. It's a lot better, but then you sit and have to put them in, and it's still a random pack, and you can get a bajillion of these commons that you can't do anything with. And then there's this really awful market system where you trade booster packs for like key cards, and I don't know. I really don't like that. So kind of puts me off of building decks online.
Somewhat throttled by its limitations. Well, the reason we're all here, of course, mainly is Cardfight Vanguard, which I played for the first time last week.
Oh yeah,
ever.
How'd that go?
Well, Rory taught me, so and he was teaching me the new version, the Overdress, which isn't even out yet. Doesn't come out until the middle of May, I believe.
In English.
In English, and I got to say, for my first experience, I enjoyed it. It was confusing as balls. Of course, it's a brand new trading card game, and there's an encyclopedia on every single card. And Rory was teaching me. No, Rory, I will take the piss out of you for a joke, but really, you taught me very, very well. I thought you gave me a really, really good rundown on how it works. And I enjoyed the experience, so much so that I would definitely like to play it again. So much so that I watched the anime the following morning.
Wait, the Overdress anime or the old Vanguard?
Overdress, the first episode of Overdress.
Because it was a special pre-airing or whatever that they did. They pre-aired it 3 times because it was so popular. But it's doing a lot. There's a lot of buzz around this new version of Vanguard in Japan, which is crazy.
But you kind of got to go back and watch the first episode of the original series.
Do I? Yeah, do I really?
Maybe watch the first episode of the V series.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's
The
like
V one-
78 series, Michael. You should definitely watch one of them.
It's been around for 10 years. What do you expect?
So, like in terms of jumping into it, probably the best question to ask is like, what drew you both to Cardfight Vanguard as a trading card game?
Oh boy.
For me, it was a new game that I didn't know how to play, and Will kept harping about it. He's like, "Oh,
I
it's
did
so good."
what?
Right.
I did not.
No. But I love the art. And then when I first like learned how to play it, I really enjoyed how at that time your entire deck was all made of units. So everyone could attack, everyone could be used as guard. Like that's how you protect yourself. You throw down a comrade, and they'll come in and they'll block some of the damage away. And I really like that mechanic. How every card was useful for almost everything, basically. And I liked how you would ride up, and then that would control like what cards you called and whatnot. I love that aspect, and I love the art. I think Vanguard has like some of the best art. Definitely top 5 of any card game that I've ever played. It's definitely up there. And just like some of the key mechanics. I love the trigger mechanic where you don't know what's coming on top of your deck. You trigger it. Oh, wow, this super cool effect. And now it does something really interesting. Or that 6 damage shield. It saves your butt. Just like
Which is always like the best feeling, right? It's just like, oh,
feeling.
I'm going to lose. Wait, I didn't lose.
Yeah, back in. And then your opponent's just like.
So I think that's worth coming back to, because I think that's a critical aspect of the game, the trigger checks and drive checks that would frustrate the players of Newsford, which I was just talking about, which is the Euro game, where you want to know everything that's going on in the game and be in complete control of it. Whereas this adds an element of uncertainty, which makes the game so kind of like heroic when you get those.
Yes, it's very
when you pull
exciting.
them off. But we'll come back and chat about like the mechanics within the game. So, Will, how about you? How did you get started?
Well, I mean, I think the thing that I like the most about Vanguard, and it's kind of telling that Cole and I both have Vanguard-based tattoos. It's that there's the identification, right? They've done away with the clans, but there's still that remnant, right? That they've got nations now. But there were 23 clans, and it's like you could strongly identify with whatever clan you were playing. Right. And so like for me, it was Link Joker. Everybody knows I walk in the room. It's the Link Joker dude. Stay away from him. He's a butthead.
He doesn't like fun.
No, right? The Will Anderson's key phrase.
Yeah.
You don't have to have fun as long as I'm having fun. Right. It's not, this isn't a both of us kind of thing.
Okay, so he will actually guard the fun and limit it to himself.
Well, literally the deck he's talking about, Link Joker, like locks down its opponent.
I make it so you can't play, but it's like I didn't come here so you could play. I came here so that I can play.
Is that what I had like last week then? So I had this deck with a prison.
Yeah. So that's
that.
Brantgate is the sort of the descendants now of the Link Joker clan that they're doing away with the clans. But I do absolutely adore the art, the fact that all of the cards are full art, right? They don't. They're really not bordered. And I mean, it was relatively inexpensive, comparatively inexpensive to get in. I think when I, of course, started in on the Link Joker thing, that was a bit of a not the inexpensive deck at that time. I think I spent $300 or something on 4 cards, but
Amnesty Messiahs?
Was it Amnesty? Was the first one, the first Messiah G Stride? Yeah.
I don't remember. I just remember you complaining about Amnesty, and then like the next set they reprinted them. So
well, they did reprint them eventually, and the price went down. But relatively, the cards were and over time the cards have gotten less and less expensive. They're really doing better about that. And honestly, the Vanguard community in DC was a real draw for me. And it's unfortunate that I have moved to an area of the country where there is no Vanguard community. But we still have, our drive check community, and it's great people, right? I think one of the great things, I hate to say it this way, one of the great things about Vanguard is there's not a lot of money to be made in playing Vanguard. So the majority out there, people playing are playing it because they enjoy the game and they want to have fun, right? Which is like, there's a lot of TCGs where everybody's like, I'm a professional Magic player. Don't you waste my time with your casual baloney.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to build a Magic deck where I create 100 kittens.
But I think,
I mean, that's my kind of game. I'm here for that.
I think it's probably heresy to say, but I think, like, to some extent, the internet has turned trading card games into an arms race, like, in that, because the narrative for me with every single game is like, oh, I play against somebody, or I go, I've got these cards, I wonder if I could do anything to make it better, and then it's like, oh, you need like these ultra rare cards and this combo and this thing, and it's like, no matter how, it's like, it's in my head now and I know it exists, this perfect version of the deck. Whereas if I didn't know that, I'd be happy to play with the starters, or you know, just develop a style of play that I enjoy. But because of the internet and the sharing of decks, all the games seem to get whittled down to, I know in Pokemon it became about 3 or 4 decks.
Yes,
which just took the fun away from it all.
And really, the way to think about that, and I tend to be the kind of person that thinks in charts and graphs and stuff, though, is if you're playing a trading card game with no access to the outside world, it's just you and your friends, then it doesn't matter what cards you're playing, what decks you're playing.
Yes,
but the minute
ignorance is bliss.
The minute you get access to the outside world, and then all of a sudden that's when the meta develops, right? And it's like, well, everybody in Japan has built this deck, and this is the deck that has won these tournaments this number of times, so you know that these are the right cards to play. And it's like, but I want to play the cards that are fun for me to play, right? And it's like, if it's just me and Cole, I can play stupid deck.
Mike just right all day.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Rory, remember when Lightseekers first dropped and we got starter decks, and we had a lovely time playing that. Just having, just with just a starter deck and a couple of boosters, and just having goofy times.
Oh man, I miss Lightseekers.
Yeah, Lightseekers. I love that.
I blame
game.
Lightseekers on Rory.
Yes.
he literally
he
bribed me to play Lightseekers.
I've been trying to get Will to play for like a year at that point, and then it took meeting Rory and sitting down and borrowing his decks at Gen Con, and Will's like, oh, this game's actually pretty good.
It is fun.
Yeah, I removed the barrier to entry.
Yeah. I love how they came up with that mobile game, which was actually pretty good. It's pretty like bare bones. Play the game, it's great. It wasn't too hard to get cards, but then because it's a smaller company, like an indie company, this is their first card game. They introduced a bunch of erratas and card effects, like a whole bunch, and it changed. And they were doing it like almost every week. There was a new thing, and I couldn't keep up. And I was like, I can't do it. But I guess it's still going on right now. It still exists.
I thought they stopped making it.
They stopped making the physical.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
See, they were a tech company originally.
Yeah.
So they basically have stuck with what the bit I think they're strongest at, and probably making way more money from.
Yeah,
as well.
Great. Like, I have some of the action figures behind.
Oh wow,
hiding. Yeah,
well, you're part of the problem.
They were really cool because like it was. Anyway,
so Ken is just dipping out, and he's saying, "Do people have a favorite LCG?"
What style or living card? Okay.
Yeah, living card game.
Living card game.
Yeah, I mean, chat knows mine. It's Marvel Champions now for sure, because it's right there. It's really freaking good.
Yeah, I played it with Rory when I met him in Minneapolis, and I love that. That was a whole lot of fun to me, but I haven't actually sat down and bought it yet. But I did buy the first set of L5R when Fantasy Flight did it.
I really liked L5R. I bought in on L5R, and partially like for the same reason that I like Vanguard so much. It's like, right, you pick which of the clans in L5R that you're going to focus on. You mix maybe one or two together, and it's like you identify as that technique. but the mechanics of L5R were just so complicated. It just like sucked all the fun out of the game.
Yeah, L5R is good, but it's a meaty game apparently. And Ken says, "Will Scorpion Clan?
Of course, you're Scorpion.
Yes, Scorpion.
And Scorpion and Crab.
Shock."
But it's like it's so telling, right? With Vanguard, one of the other guy that we do the podcast with now, Alan, he used to be one of my staff members, and then just a coworker. But we would just like at lunch at work say, "Oh, hey, let's play a round of Vanguard." And it's just so easy to grab our decks and just play. You could not do that with L5R. You'd need all the pieces and the little dial to do your little bet before your turn. And it's like, you forget the timing of like when you can do this, that, and the other. And like,
Where like Vanguard could be a half-hour game, and then L5R was like an entire hour.
Yeah. It's I don't think I've managed to get a game down to an hour, even the skirmish. Like to me, L5R is a board game masquerading as a card game.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, it's like I have confession time. I've never played Twilight Imperium, but in terms of like a deep, engrossing game, that's what Legends of the Five Rings is. It just looks like a card game, but it's not. Like there's so when you think about the rounds and like you've 5 battles each round, like it's crazy what is going on in the game. But I love the artwork. Like I wish I could rewrite the game and keep all the artwork and the cards, but just do something else with it.
And that whole like over concept of as the tournaments play out, it changes the way that the game is developed over time. That is absolutely fascinating to me. I really wish that somebody else could actually make that work.
It's really cool.
So we could probably talk about that for ages. So L5R, and for me, currently it's Marvel Champions and Ashes, with the new newborn decks coming out. Just got notification that it's on its way.
There you go.
And a small thing called Project Nisei as well.
Yes,
just a little.
Which is the Netrunner community-led group.
Okay.
So they've actually reissued starters and a deck building set, which they just announced last week. We've a kind of mutual friend who's a big Netrunner fan, and he's kind of mourning the death of it. So we're going to pick up some decks and be able to start playing again. And I like that they've kind of addressed a lot of the balance issues and stuff within this new set as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. Ken gives a shout out to the Arkham Horror TCG, LCG, which you have my copy of already. I should probably try and play that again at some point. And a game that I have a copy of, which I really like, called Millennium Blades, which was released by Level 99. And it's basically a CCG simulator.
Yes.
And I am a big fan of it. I've got the base game and a couple of the mini expansions for it, but it's ludicrous. It's set in a world where if Gutenberg, instead of having printed the Bible first, he decided, screw it, I'm going to make some traded card games. It's set in a universe like that, and it's very, very weird, and it's got lots of lovely, so many different strange ways that the cards bounce off each other. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah, actually, Rory, when we get to sit in a room again, we should play it. And it's hilarious when you've got like these big stacks of paper notes and you're just throwing them across the table at each other to buy cards off each other, and it's absolutely lovely. It's a set an evening aside to play it game, but it's very, very, very fun. And decks aplenty is one of the characters. It's absolutely ridiculous.
There's like still, I'm looking at my list of questions to kind of get through. With this is kind of like a side question, but I think it's kind of interesting to tap into. Can you talk about the player age group for both Pokemon and say Cardfight Vanguard, compared to who you think the target audience is for those games?
Yeah, can I jump on this first, Roy? Because I mean, I had a bit of a bit of a thought on this. Like, for the longest time, I thought Cardfight Vanguard was a kiddie game, just because of the way that it was presented. It had an anime and blah blah blah, this, that, and the other. And then I sort of like, had to look through a few cards and swiftly realized that, good God, no, this is not a game for the young'uns. But is that sort of view something that's seen often? I mean, you're slap bang in the middle of it, whereas I'm very much on the outside. What do you see like the essentially the target market for something like Cardfight Vanguard as being?
I've seen like Vanguard. It's I would say more like teen and up.
Yeah.
Right. Not. It's like the protagonist of the original anime was a middle schooler, so 11, 12.
Yep.
And I think that's probably any up from there is the target play group area.
Oh man, that made me think of. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, Pokemon. The thing that like always gets me is, obviously I'm at an age now where my friends have children and they know I'm the Pokemon guy. So they'll get their kids' Pokemon decks and they'll say, well, okay, how do I play this? And then I explain it to them and they're like, that is way too complicated. How am I supposed to teach this to my kids? Which is like, that's your normies, right? And then you go to Pokemon League on a Saturday afternoon and so you got your Poke Dads and your Poke Moms, and there's like a 5-year-old who can't even read the cards, who is killing you at the game just because they've memorized the pictures. And they're like,
I've been there.
We've all been there.
Every night, their parent is like, no, you've got to play Pokemon for an hour because this is how we're going to get through college. This is how we're going to pay for college. Is that Pokemon scholarship? So I think Pokemon is more wide ranging until you the Poke Dad, Poke Mom age, and if you don't have a Poke Child, then it's kind of like don't show up.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I really like the game.
I mean, Cole, you mentioned when like Pokemon was the first one you got into as a kid. Because you just like the look of the cards. And I remember it still happens. I was a primary or elementary school teacher up until a few years ago. And just seeing kids swapping cards in the playground, it's sort of like going, hey, I can teach you how to play this game. I actually vaguely know it. And they went, you can play this? This is a game? It's just like, what?
Yeah.
Look at these things.
Like the reason that these two are my favorite is because these are the two cards I had as a kid, and I love them. I love the art of them so much.
Are those Mareeps?
Those are Mareeps, man.
Yeah, Mareep.
One of my all-time favorite Pokemon. And it's because I had the art of the kid, and I love the art so much growing up. So that's probably the biggest influence on me. It's just having those Pokemon cards.
I was thinking of the amount of Team Rocket and second printing cards in dumpsters and bins around the world.
Well, doesn't
makes me feel very sad.
Doesn't that show you a key difference between children and adults? Children will go to the playground and trade their Pokemon cards, and it's like, I really like that Pokemon, so I'll trade it for this one that you really like. And then they come home and their parents are like, you traded a $75 card for this 50-cent piece of common trash?
So I'm actually really happy because a young boy that I know who used to come to our group stopped a trade happening in his schoolyard. And he told the teacher.
Does he recognize the value?
Yeah.
This is the brave hero representation that we need in society.
Brave hero of capitalism is what that is right
No,
there.
I think he was like, it was a G-Max or something. It was before that. Was it just a Max card?
GX?
GX.
Yeah.
Yes.
For something else. And he was just like, I think he was calling over the teacher more to oversee the trade to make sure that it was fair. And I think he had me in his ears, like going, because I always used to step in and make sure a trade was fair between kind of, especially with older players trading with younger ones. But I think
Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rory in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
Do not let this happen, young Padawan.
No. So, I mean, this is a side thing, but I think the positive aspect of League play is the etiquette and the sportsmanship that that comes with that of learning how to lose fairly. Like, I actually saw my first child cheat in a game of Pokemon and totally denied it, blew up a whole thing, and eventually came back and admitted, what had happened. And this is like a young boy playing against a young girl, and she whooped him, and he cheated in the process. And it was like a really hard lesson for him to have to learn, because in his head he was like the best at this game and had probably been hyped up with his family and stuff as well. And I think they're really important life lessons, and it's probably better they learn it in a safe environment, than the hard knocks so they're better equipped for dealing with the hard knocks of the world. And I think that's the thing I loved most about when I ran the Cardfight Vanguard League is seeing older players coaching the younger ones and like helping them construct their decks and giving them spare cards to like flesh out their deck as well. It's like that to me is like the best aspect of this. If you just capture that and show it to people as to like, this is why trading card games can be fun, or there's so much more to them than just the competitive aspect, which is what tends to get focused on.
Yeah. I love the whole community aspect. When I first started playing Vanguard, my locals wasn't the greatest. It was basically one guy, and then he had a bunch of friends around him and kind of rolled like that. And they were like super competitive. And so I kind of hated going every Saturday, but that was the only time I got to play. And then I moved to where I am currently in Cincinnati area. And I found a core group of like really close friends who just happen to play Vanguard all together. Granted, they're all really good at it, but it's an actual group, and they're all here to help each other. And I'm excited every time I get to come and hang out with them and see them, because we all have a ton of fun just playing the game, even though it's a tournament. But like we're always laughing and having fun. That's my favorite part about any card game, is like the whole community aspect around it, especially when you're with a good group of people and everything. Just like it's not a chore to come out and play, but it's just you're just having so much fun. That's my favorite part.
I mean, and we all know me, right? I rarely win. I'm so bad at these things. It's like I will have the most expensive, most meta deck, and I'll still lose. But I love like the humor and the jokes and the stories that come out of these matches. Just like that is 100% the draw for me. It's just having a place to go and goof around with some folks, and we're sitting there to play games, but it's more the interactions and the social aspect.
And I think in kind of moving it along a little bit, like I think one of the things I really like about Bushiroad and what they're doing, particularly with Cardfight Vanguard, whether it's true or not, is the narrative they present is, the young player who discovers the game is an outsider. So in the first series, he's being bullied. In Overdress, he can't say no, so he can't stand up for himself.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know with the younger players that were like in our group, that really spoke to them. It's like, I can identify with Aichi. Just this person where they're not cool, they're a little bit nerdy. And I think that potentially speaks to the players, because even in the game, in the anime, it's all about, the kind of fairness, and you have the super competitive players, but ultimately they look out for each other kind of in it. And I think they've done a good job of almost like communicating how we want you to play this game through the anime. So I'm wondering like how that speaks to you, the two of you.
Well, there's also somewhat, we'll have to see how it plays out, but there's kind of a transition in the new anime, because in the old anime, I think both times that they started with the Aichi story, it was like, trading card games are popular, and the most popular game that everyone plays is Vanguard, right? That's the world that they created. But if you notice in this new anime, the community of Vanguard players they're playing at night in an abandoned amusement park, right?
Yeah, it's very much underground.
It's like an underground society of Vanguard players, which is either, hey, I'm part of this cool group that, we're behind the scenes, or is it bad?
Well, it's also older. The thing that struck me is that are Bushiroad noticing that their audience is older.
Yes.
And shifting, because it definitely feels like it's grown up a certain degree in terms of who it's speaking to, that maybe they thought the audience was going to be the iChis of the world, but really the ones who are actively playing it and committed usually require some money and support to be able to invest in it. So you're talking probably college level, at least.
Yeah.
For
which most of the players that I know are college and 20s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think
It's that brief window of time when you have disposable income.
Yeah. Exactly.
Disposable income and the time to do stuff as
Yes,
well,
the time
which is
for
very,
deck
very
building.
important.
Yeah.
I mean, Rory, it's interesting that you mentioned the monetary aspect as well, because we've talked about it. We mentioned it on last week's show, but Bushiroad are pushing these starter decks. Like, there's going to be 5 new starter decks, and they are releasing them for the equivalent of the buttons in your pocket, which is absolutely wild. I mean, like your average trading card game, a starter deck is going to set you back here in the UK between, like, let's say £8 and £12, something like that. And they are releasing them with a recommended retail for well under half that. So it's going to be £4 a deck here in the UK. You can
Which
sniff
is actually
around
still more
online.
expensive than the US, which is going to be $3.99.
Yeah, which is well. But I mean, basically, if you sniff around online, you can find these starter decks, like pre-orders, for the cost of a booster, which I find it absolutely wild. I mean, I will definitely be picking up the 5 starters, because it's like, that's going to give me an awful lot of gameplay, and it'll let me experience a lot of the game. But yeah, do you think that, like, Bushiroad is sort of like pushing to try and get the game more worldwide now? Because I mean, the main, the main sort of audience is definitely Japan for this game at the moment.
So
but it looks like they're going bigger.
I would actually argue that Bushiroad was focused on the main audience being Japan, and ignoring the fact that they had a huge market elsewhere in the world. And I think, which I would have to do a better study of Japanese business. I think that is something that happens with a lot of Japanese companies, where they say, we really care about the Japanese market, and if there's other people that want to buy our stuff, okay, rather than we want to make a global product. But I also want to stack on top of the fact that these new starters are super cheap, other indicators that we've had, especially coming from the V series, which is coming to a close now. The last 2 sets that they've printed for the V series, if you bought 4 boxes of each set, you would have the entire set. There's no randomization. Well, there's randomization in getting like a rare art for the card, but you could easily get 4 of every copy of a card, which just drives the cost down incredibly. And it looks like they're continuing that trend with the upcoming booster sets, where they basically say there's going to be 10 new cards in this set, and each box will have one of each of those 10, or all 10 of them in the packs, right? That's what they came out with, right, Cole?
Is that, and then there's also reprints of the starter deck cards with like special foilings.
Yes. So it's kind of like going against this argument, which I've seen in the TCG communities for a long time, which is like the game publishers need a secondary market. They need that strong, expensive secondary market to thrive. And I'm like, what? Why?
They don't make anything from
it. It's like they're not making money off the secondary market. But then, I mean, the counter argument to that is like, well, that just shows that there's interest in the cards, but blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean people are playing the game. And I think Bushiroad has really made an effort with Vanguard to make the game less expensive and more accessible. And the new director or producer? Producer has specifically said, like, he wants this to be a global game.
Yeah.
So that's what we're really looking for, decisions that are being made on their part that indicate that the English version will be almost as equivalent to the Japanese version. We're still not getting simultaneous release dates, which that would be the best. That would be the best. But in the Vanguard community, we can always say, at least we're not Italy. Do you guys know what's happening with the Italian Vanguard? They are literally 5 or 6 years behind, and they're not doing any catch up. They're literally just printing the sets 6 years behind translated into Italian.
They're combining some sets all together.
Oh, okay.
But like not nearly to the speed as what they want. Where in Korea, they started with the V series. So Korea has Korean cards from V series on. Thailand, I think, started a little bit after V series.
And Thailand has its own cards that don't even appear anywhere else.
Thailand is there's an Ultraman crossover in Thailand. Thailand has their own exclusive archetypes. Thailand also, because another Bushiroad property that died recently in 2020, I think, was Buddy Fight, which you want to talk about a game that seems like it's marketed for little kids, but then you look at the price of the cards and it's not marketed for little kids. Anyway, that they had their Bushiroad Thailand's kind of like continuing that as well, but not. But they are at the same time. It's so weird. Like Bushiroad, it's its own thing. That's all I can really like explain it. Like they're doing their own thing.
If you got hold of those Thai cards, would you be able to like use them in a tournament or stuff? Is it like literally just?
No. I will try, but
you can't stop me.
I just want to quickly come back actually to the whole thing of the booster box, because that's really fascinating. Because to me, the ideal model for a trading card game is you've boosters that, so the super casual player, they can dip their toe in, get a booster, have the fun of opening it, and that's it, right? Which you can't do with a LCG because it's fixed. There's no surprise. There's no chance of that surprise card. But at the other end, if you can just say to a player, well, I guarantee if you spend, $150, $200, you'll just get everything. That's all you need to keep playing. In a way, the person's like, okay, I can budget for that. There you go. You've got everything. And then we can all move on and start playing at the different levels that we want to play. And I think if they take that approach, that's going to be really interesting. Like if they can...
Well, I was just going to say, I think they have to, right? Because draft as a format in Magic works. Just the way that Magic cards interact, draft as a format works. So they can continue to publish with draft as a goal. Draft as a format in Pokemon is okay. It's not fantastic, but it's functional. Draft never worked with Vanguard because those cards, like from different clans, are not designed to interact with each other in any way. They're just insufficiently diffuse in their interactions. That may change with nations. I don't know. So. But
I think, honestly,
I think overall, I think there has been recognition with Bushiroad that trying to emulate companies that print towards draft is a mistake, and that their game really is more aligned with an LCG. Right? Because what people want to do is they want to have their clan, they want to have their nation, they want to identify with their nation, and then they want to like adapt that nation over time as the sets come out. Very rarely would a Vanguard player want to completely throw out the deck that they have and build a completely new deck. Right? It's like when I was playing Link Jokers, when I was playing Messiahs, I wanted my key Messiah cards from 2015 all the way through 2018. I wanted that core to always be the same. And yes, the peripheral cards that added in, the interactions would change around it. So pulling from random packs, it would never work. Because like, how am I going to ever guarantee that I'm even going to pull a Link Joker card? Well, of course, and there's sets where there's Link Jokers not even published. So it's like...
Well, then, because like even the sets back then, they were so small as well. There's so little in there. So you're opening packs just to open packs at this point, and you're not getting much out of it. So
I just want to throw this in from Yoss. There is no real sealed option, is there, within Cardfight Vanguard?
Sealed is... How does that work? Oh, to me, that's the same as draft, right? You get 5 random packs and you build a deck from those. No, it's not going to work because you're either going to get a bunch of nations that don't operate with each other. It's like Vanguard doesn't work with building a random deck out of cards and hoping that they work together, or a somewhat built deck out of a random pull of cards. You really have to design top to bottom especially like, what does my grade 0 lineup look like? What does my grade 1 lineup look like? 2s and 3s.
So actually, we'll come back to that because I actually think talking about like the deck construction and the gameplay, we still got to get to that. Cole, did you want to add anything in?
Tech for pre-releases, they actually did in English, which is weird. They don't do it in Japan or any other place, as far as I know. But there was like a pre-release sealed draft sort of thing. But basically, what that just turned into was people grabbing all the triggers, and like as it would go around, and you just play a deck with all triggers, basically. It's a smaller deck and whatnot. But they have stated that they want to change their pre-release things, where you come and you bring your own triggers. So you like your 4 ofs, whatever you're going to need. And then you would pull cards from the pack. And it would, the way that Overdress is kind of built, honestly, nothing necessarily works specifically for that nation unless it's something that says like prison or whatnot, which are the specific mechanics and whatnot. So it's very possible that you could draft a deck or make a sealed deck out of, like, especially if you bought a booster, like a starter deck and then a couple boosters and mixed a deck with that and played like that. I think it's very possible, especially because it's so cheap. So I think it's possible.
How you kind of stumble into something, Will, which I think is actually really helpful to kind of talk to the audience about, and David is asking questions, which I really want to come back to as well, about the formats. So how do you go about constructing a deck in Cardfight Vanguard, and like what is it you like about that approach?
What do I need to know?
This is for both of you.
It's been completely blown up now. Then because of the change to Overdress, I can't give much advice on Overdress.
Well, this is because it's gone from 24
individuals
now
5, 6.
The huge change in deck construction with Overdress. Okay, so Classic Vanguard, you could only include cards from a single clan in your deck, 50 card deck. And there were subclans. So Link Joker is my favorite. You had Messiahs as a subclan. You had Starvaders as a subclan. You had Deleters as a subclan. If you were putting Deleters in a Messiah deck, you're either know something that nobody else does, or you're making a huge mistake. Now, here's the thing. With Overdress, they've introduced the Ride deck. 4 cards that you take out of your 50 cards, you put them aside, and you say, when it's my time to ride, I can discard a card from my hand and take a card from the Ride deck. My rides are now guaranteed. They're not randomized.
Quick thing for folks who don't know what rides are. This is basically it means something very different in Ireland. This is you leveling up your main central hero, essentially. Your main Vanguard?
Your Vanguard. Your Vanguard. In Vanguard, at the start of your turn, first thing you do, draw for turn. Next thing that you do is you try to get your Vanguard from whatever number it's at. Grade is the term we use. If it's grade 1, you want to get it to grade 2. So you want to play a grade 2 from your hand to bring it to the next level, because that is sort of a rate limiting thing where you can't play cards that are of a higher number than what your current Vanguard is. And grade 3 is typically the highest, although we can get to 4 and 5. But a lot of
5s as well.
Hey, don't worry about it.
No, just pretend he didn't say that. keep going, Will.
So the main thing was, in Classic Vanguard, your deck construction had to be built in a somewhat pyramid format, so that you would make sure that you had in your first opening hand 1s that you could ride a 1 on your 0. You wanted to then have 2s, and then you need fewer 3s because you're going to be later in the game. You're going to have had more opportunities to draw into a grade 3 in your hand. Now we have the Ride deck, which is going to have a 0, a 1, a 2, and a 3.
Oh, yeah, actually.
So you're guaranteed to be able to ride at the start of your turn. You don't have to rely on shaping your deck to sort of increase the odds that you're going to have the card in hand that you need at the time. So deck construction is completely transformed.
Oh, wow,
because we don't have to do that pyramid structure anymore. And honestly, one of the nations right now, Keter Sanctuary, which will be coming out, the whole mechanic, which for the deep Vanguard insiders, we call this the Morikawa build, because in the first episode of the anime, he did this. You could literally have, well, you guys say 2, Cole, right? Like, yeah, but like a grade 0, 2 grade 1s, 2 grade 2s, and then the entire rest of your deck can be grade 3s
Yeah.
because Keter Sanctuary bases everything on the number of grade 3s you have on the board.
Mm-hmm.
So you would literally want to have like 43 grade 3s and 7 of everything else.
I mean, no, because you triggers.
Oh, with the triggers.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. You don't want to give up on triggers.
30 grade 3s.
30 grade 3s, sure. But still, it's such a huge change from what Vanguard was before when it comes to deck construction.
Okay, so previously,
so much more versatility.
Mathematically, you needed like this amount of zeros, this amount of ones, this amount of, just to sort of like mathematically guarantee that you're going to get something.
Let me see if I can do real numbers here. It was like 17 zeros, 13 or 14 ones, 12 or 13 twos, and then it's classic 8 threes.
Yeah.
I mean, those numbers are like burnt into my memory.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and now it doesn't even matter. Doesn't matter, and especially because like in V series, the grade 1s had 10k shield, which is how you would guard yourself, and which was a lot. In V series and in in Overdress and the original, they dropped it back down to 5k. So now there's no difference between your grade 1 shield and your grade 2 shield, because it's just the way that the game was made. So there's literally no difference in you having more grade 1s or grade 2s anymore for like shield wise. So it just comes down to effects and if you want to be more aggressive with your boosting and whatnot. So like that whole aspect also changes too. So you don't have to necessarily worry about how much guard you have because you want to have X amount of grade 1s. So like, literally the whole game changed because of that ride deck mechanic.
And Michael, I kind of in my head I liken it to the starting 5 in Ashes. Like so I think Ashes, you know, which was inspired by kind of Magic the Gathering. Like Isaac was a huge fan and a competitive player as a designer. So guys, if you don't know, in Ashes, you choose your starting 5 cards. They all have to be unique, but you start the game because Isaac's view is like, well, you're meant to be this powerful Phoenixborn. Like, you don't want to spend half the game trying to find the cards that you want to play. And you'll pick your starting 5 depending on who's seated across from you as well. So if you look at the kind of Phoenixborn you're playing against, you'll go, oh, right, they're really good at locking me down. So therefore, I'll pull these cards out of my deck. And there are 30 card decks, usually with roughly 3 of each card, or, you know, a splash of a few cards, 1 of a card or 2 of a card. And I think it gives you a certain guarantee when you're going into the game that there's certain things you can get into play and get your wheel kind of moving. And I think that's what I was really excited about when I saw the ride deck being announced for Overdress in Cardfight Vanguard. The new kind of essentially reboot of the game was that you could guarantee that. So you didn't have to go through those kind of missed turns and the way they fudged it over the last couple of releases to try and account for that. But it never struck me then that I don't need all of those like grade 1s in my deck to get to that point.
It completely transforms deck construction, because it used to be also, it's like the hard choices you were making in Vanguard is primarily between the grade 1s and the grade 2s. It's like, I can drop down 1 grade 1 to get this grade 2 that has a really good effect and to get more of those in my deck. But in so doing, I may misride on my first turn, right? Because now I don't have as many to choose from. But if I like make my base too wide, I might have to do only 4 grade 3s. And there were decks that were only doing 4 grade 3s, but it's like, boy, you could whiff that real hard. Yeah. And if your opponent gets to grade 3 and you're still on grade 2, game over, bud. It's like, good luck to you.
Yeah.
So
miss those decks.
I'm going to assume we're going to go until 9, if that's okay. Sorry, for another 30 minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So what is it that you really... So I want to ask first, like, what is it you really like about Cardfight Vanguard? And then we'll talk about Overdress, about what's kind of exciting you about that. And why people should be excited about it. But like right now, in terms of Cardfight Vanguard, like what are the elements of the gameplay, whether it's deck construction or, you know, moments in the game that you really like and that people kind of should be excited about?
I can go first, I think.
Go for it, Cole.
So what I really like gameplay wise is like the trigger system. which we alluded on earlier.
Mhm.
And also the fact that for the most part, all the cards are units and they can do different things. So even if you've got like a card that's really good for shield, you can throw it down and you can still use it to attack. Basically, Overdress changes that. But
So
we'll talk about that later.
can you? Because there's a bunch of people listening or watching who've never.
Yeah.
The first time they've experienced Cardfight Vanguard was watching us play it last week. So can you kind
is
of
a very strong word.
Yeah, learning. So can you break down like why shields are important?
Sure.
Triggers.
Sure. So the whole combat system of this game is a little interesting. So you build your board, right? And then it's a 2x3 sort of section. So 3 rows on top and 3 in the bottom. 3 columns on top, 3 in the bottom.
3 columns, 2 rows.
Anyway,
3 columns, 2 rows, 6 cards. Most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. And so your front row are the ones that can attack, and then the ones behind are what is considered boosters. So you would turn them, tap them, rest them, whatever you want to call it, and you add their power to the ones in the row in front of them. And so you combine that power, and then you tap, and then you swing at your opponent's Vanguard. When you attack your opponent's Vanguard, they're the ones that take damage. So damage, you need 6 damage in order to win, to have dealt 6 damage to win. And so the only way to guard is to use cards in your front row that have the intercept symbol, which they can jump in front and they can say, hey, I'm going to borrow some of my strength in order to guard this. Then you also have cards in your hand that will also provide shield. So generally, your triggers are your highest shield. So right now they're 15s for the most part, 15k power. And so you would add that, and then you can also put grade 2s and 3s and 1s down. They have shield printed on the side.
Well, grade 3s typically have no shield. Don't confuse
technically,
them.
yeah. Some have effects that give them shield, but you can throw them down to guard. Technically, you can. They just don't have printed shield. So you throw that down, and then you would add the guard to it. And then now you have to factor in, is my opponent going to pull a trigger? Because if they pull a trigger on their drive check, which is when their Vanguard attacks, they get to check the top X amount of cards of their deck. And then you're looking for a special symbol in the grade 0s in your deck are all your triggers. So you're looking for that, and you have to factor in, okay, so right now their power is, let's say, 23, but this is their grade 3 Vanguard, so they get 2 checks. So they could possibly pull 2 triggers, and right now triggers are 10Ks. So for every trigger that's checked, it adds another 10K to the attack, basically. So now you have to factor in, well, it's 23 now, but it could be 43. So do I need to throw down enough guard from my hand? So I need to make my hand smaller in order to survive this attack, or do I play the odds? They've seen a lot of triggers already. They're not going to check any, so I can make it maybe 1 trigger to pass. So if they hit a trigger, 1 trigger, then the attack would still go through, and I would take the damage. Or I can be like, that ain't happening. So I throw down enough to make it so that no matter how many triggers that they throw down, the attack is not getting through. And I love that aspect of the game. So you're playing the odds, basically. So some people will sit there and they'll ask, hey, can I get a trigger count? Because you have to have 16 triggers in your deck.
Yes.
It's mandatory 16. So you can go through.
Exactly?
Exactly 16.
Okay.
So you can go through and you can count all the triggers that you've seen. And depending on your game knowledge, you can know this deck generally likes to run X amount of whatever specific trigger. So you can count and see, you can kind of see how many cards they have left in their deck, and then use your math skills and try to figure that out. Figure out how likely it is that they're going to pull a trigger. So that is
if you're like a thinking player. Yeah.
If I'm really trying, that's what I'm doing. But normally I'm just grip and rip it. We'll figure it out later.
Yeah, but like Vanguard is really, it's a very simplified combat system of let me establish my field. As I'm establishing my field, I may be manipulating your field. There's very little, extremely little interaction. Boy, Scrapple wants to weigh in on this. Very little interaction, like on my turn, right? Which was your complaint, Rory, right? It's like I'm doing my manipulations of the field. You're going to go and get coffee, and come back when you're ready for me to actually do something that you.
That's when it was quite. I think that's when you got to the higher level cards.
Yeah.
But at the lower levels, no. Like the turns are always so quick.
So you build your field, you start declaring your attacks, you attack in certain ways. Some effects may go off as part of the attacks, and then you clean up, right? So it's just a very simplified, there's not like 8 different phases to get through. Thank you, L5R. Or even Vice Schwartz. It's like, there's all these different areas that you have to manage. You're dealing damage, you're guarding against the damage, and even the attack, right? I declare an attack, you declare whether you're going to guard it or not. Then we resolve the attack. Simple as that.
And I mean, one thing you haven't mentioned with the triggers, Cole, is they also have like effects that go with them. So you've got, a draw trigger, a critical trigger, a heal trigger, and they used to be a stand trigger, which is not like, but they're introducing the front trigger.
They got rid of stand trigger. Yeah,
I like that one.
Yeah, everyone liked it.
Was front trigger the one that we were confused about last week, Rory?
Yeah, because I never seen
everybody.
It before.
Everybody in the front row gets 10k.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah.
So what's absolutely hilarious, which we found out, was it just yesterday that they revealed it? The over triggers.
Yeah.
Okay, so over triggers are a new thing. We don't have to go in depth on that. It's just like a mega trigger, but they literally have one now that is all 4 of the triggers in one. So if you reveal it on your drive check, you draw a card, you get an extra critical, which just means you deal an extra damage if your attack goes through. Your entire front row gets plus 10,000, and you heal a card from your damage.
If you heal it, if it
fantastic thing, fantastically ridiculous thing ever.
But that's what I love about the game. It's kind of a little bit ridiculous.
Yes.
So I realize I know what my favorite thing is, but Will, I'm kind of curious from your perspective, like what is it that you really enjoy, either kind of mechanically or about the game that people should know about?
I think for me, it's all the things that I will play and the things that I enjoy. I mean, we know number one, combos. I love just pulling off combos, but I also like decks that use like weird alterations of the mechanics. So, right, Link Joker was a huge favorite of mine because I'm literally turning my cards face down. I'm turning your cards face down, which is like, in what game do you go and just like, I'm making your stuff invisible. But the one that I've been a huge fan of most recently is Angel Feather, where it's basically you're using your damage zone as an extension of your hand. So, I have cards that when I play them, I can take things from my damage zone and put them on the field. I can take things from my damage zone and put them back into my hand. And in so doing, I deal myself additional damage, where it's like, you're like, why would you want to do that? Well, because I can get trigger checks. I can, right? And when you do a damage trigger, I get a power up on my Vanguard. And this is before I attack. I think that's like, it's so weird. It's like, why would you want to damage yourself? Why would you want to take damage to have a damage zone as an extension of your hand? But it's so much fun. And like my current deck that is driving me up the wall, but I'm having a fantastic time playing. It's called Shin Malkuth Malek. And the core concept of this deck is you have a card, Shin Malkuth Malek, that you want to have on top of your deck when you do a damage check, because if you check it as part of your damage check, it becomes your Vanguard. Your Vanguard stands, you get all kinds of effects.
Oh, wow.
But only if you check it as part of a damage check. So you have all these manipulations that you do to get that card on top of your deck, and then to do a damage check before you start doing your attacks and everything like that. And that card hates me so much. I either
have you pulled it once?
Well, no, I either have a hand that's for Shin Malkuth Maleks and not Arch-Ader Malkuth Malek, who has to be there before Shin Malkuth Malek shows up, or I get Arch-Ader Malkuth Maleks and never see Shin Malkuth.
The cursed deck.
Absolutely.
So, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's like any kind of like where we veer from the straightforward to do kind of like weird manipulations and things, I have so much fun doing that kind of stuff.
So you actually remind me of Tachikaze, which I'll maybe come back to. One of the key mechanics. So in addition to everything you've mentioned, I'm going to kind of combine 2 things together, and they're called counter blasts and soul blasts. So in Cardfight Vanguard, when you're playing, you're essentially attacking. When you attack the Vanguard, so you can attack the front row. When you attack the front row, you basically destroy the unit. It gets removed from play, which can help remove blockers from the game. It's only when you attack the Vanguard do you deal damage. Damage is a card that goes into your damage zone that has the potential to reveal a trigger. But when it's in the damage zone, this now becomes a resource. So whilst your damage is increasing and getting closer to 6, which is dangerous for you losing the game, it also powers up certain cards where you need to pay a cost, which is Counterblast, and you flip one of those damage cards face down to pay the cost of that card. And some of them have like Counterblast 2, 3. I haven't seen the 3 in a while. Some were 4, which meant they were really powerful effects, and by their very nature, they could only happen later in the game because you weren't going to have the damage. And I realized the power of sometimes not attacking your opponent's Vanguard when they had been counterblasting and you knew that their Vanguard's power needed 2 counterblasts. And you're like, I'm not going to attack you this round because your key ability requires counterblasts. And the only way you can get a counterblast is if I actually give it to you by damaging you. So I'm going to hold off and buy myself some time. And they have been some of the sweetest victories when the person's like, why didn't you attack me?
Yeah, one of my key decks that I'm playing right now, Gavrail, you can't do anything unless you have 2 face-up damage. And that is how do you stop Gavrail? You don't attack the Vanguard until they're at a point where it's they can't defend, they've got nothing left. And then it's you take it out.
Yeah. And then so combined with that is the Soul Blast. And so we were talking about how you're essentially riding your Vanguard and leveling them up from a 0 to 1, 2, 3. Even when it gets to 3, you can keep riding more 3s on top of each other. The cards underneath are called the Soul, and they can be used to pay for certain cards. And so one of my favorite clans in the earlier iterations was Pale Moon, because they were like the Dark Circus, and it was all about essentially going on and off stage, which was represented by putting cards into the Soul and pulling other cards out of the Soul. And again, I like games that make good use of a limited set of resources. And for me, Vanguard has just squeezed so much out of the 6 zones where you put the characters, the Soul, or that area where the Vanguard's leveling up. It's using the damage zone. It's using trigger checks. Even on the unit cards, you've got the attack value, you've got their level, which restricts when it can be played. It's got the attack value, but it's also got the shield. So it's got this additional function as well. And there's just so much happening within your 50 card deck that I find really fascinating. All the iterations they've created then with the different clans and themes, because kind of very quickly Tachikaze eats its own units to get more powerful. It's the dinosaur deck. So the Vanguard literally eats the rear guards and powers itself up. So you get really powerful, but that attack has to count, because if it doesn't, you don't have anything left on the field to block with as well. But there's that magic of the comboing system where with Dimension Police, where all the units are forming together to power up this unit, and you're kind of adding these values, and you just know you're going in for your big final attack, which I think we saw last week, Michael, when I got off some of the power of the deck I was playing with, where you suddenly see the whole field becomes really powerful, and you're trying to figure out, oh my god, how am I going to stop this? How am I going to survive this onslaught? Because if I can, I'm going to win next round. I love that aspect of the game.
As a complete noob to the game, and talking to 3 players who have experienced, it, especially Will, you've been talking about, with great passion about, I have this deck and I have this deck and I've got this and this and this. We've got this new version of it, Overdress, coming within the next few weeks. Are you able to use any of your old stuff, or is that sort of oomph. And if you're not able to use any of the older decks, how do you feel about that? Is it just like, awesome, I'm excited because I get to buy more stuff, or is it I have all these piles of cards and I mourn them?
No, so Bushiroad is moving in a direction that's very similar to what Wizards of the Coast does, where they are now saying that there's different formats.
Okay.
So like D format will just be overdress cards only. V premium is that V era only?
Only V era, yeah.
Only, but
They'll
they will
making.
do like 2 sets a year that are V era cards.
Okay.
And then there's premium standard, which is like any card that's ever been made, unless like it's specifically banned or restricted. So that includes the things like the Stride deck, which is now 3 years old, hasn't been used. So there is a format for every player, and if you do want to play your old cards, you can always do premium standard. And the nice thing about like premium standards is that you can now add in these new cards. And when Cole and I discuss the cards every week, we try to look and say, hey, which of the older sets, which of the older deck types would be benefited by this new overdress card? How does it add value, or how is this going to affect that meta?
So I did a quick look at like after our game last week, and it kind of like, got me excited for Cardfight Vanguard again. I have a lot of stuff that's pre-2017, I think. Like 2016, 2017 was about when I finished up. No one is talking about any of those cards. Like when it comes to premium, from what I'm seeing, it's all V era, what you'd consider V era. And just because even in the time that I was playing, going from 2011, there was power creep in the cards. Like even we had that, where there was cards from 2 or 3 years ago where you're like, there's no point in taking a grade 2 unless it's 10,000, right? But there was cards with 8,000 on it, and so essentially I would love to play premium, but I'm kind of going, but most of my cards actually aren't useful at that stage, or that's my thought with it.
I think the main thing with premium is the G zone is going to remain evergreen, or as close to evergreen as possible, because those cards are coming out very rarely. So and the G zone was always the most expensive part of a G era deck. So if you have a good core G zone, they're only going to support that maybe once a year and provide updates of things, which you may or may not want to even include. And then like V era cards should be relatively inexpensive, because that's really when they started making. I mean, Cole, is there going to be a V era card that's $75 to $80?
Per
card?
There's a lot that were 30 plus. When the Great came out, it was 50. I think it recently went down to 30. But
still, 4 cards at $30 each is better than 4 cards at $75 each.
That's true. I feel like there was, maybe it's just a high rarity card that was like that. That was that much, but
yeah, Michael, I mean, for G era, right? The Strides, the Zeroth Dragons. If you keep those, are going to be valuable for years, right? They're going to be the core of your deck for a long time to come.
So I think we'll just be playing casual premium, Michael.
I think so. I mean, I have no idea what is good, what is bad. I think literally in it for the mechanisms, just in it for play.
Because even, sorry, this is kind of a side thing. We should probably talk off camera. But even if I switched out my triggers for the new stuff, like they're so overpowered compared to the cards that I have in the deck.
Definitely one of the problems with premium. But honestly, I don't play premium at all. I only play whatever the current standard is, and for me, I'm like, yes, it's nice to have fond memories of those cards, and I have them, sealed away in boxes. But I'm fine with saying, I've moved on to the newer stuff.
Well, I guess if it's a game that you have played for a long time. You've played it for a significant amount of years, and there is always that sort of like excitement when something brand new is about to drop. So, you know, we've all been watching MCU movies for the last 10 years, and we're all super excited when the next one's about to come out because, you know, it's that collective group experience that we get to experience something new for the first time together. And I guess, just like the having this game that is so familiar to you, that is so, you know, ingrained as part of you. You know, you can discuss it at length. You have like a fantastic podcast about it. Drive Check, everybody, please go check it out. And it is that sort of like this explosion of joy in the community because everybody's seeing the new stuff for the first time, and I can get behind that. I can get behind that for sure.
So before we wrap up, can you summarize the different nations to people who are kind of watching, if they're interested, so they get an idea of, oh, I'd actually be really interested in that nation and their kind of play style?
Yeah, what should I be playing?
All right, let me start with mine because okay. Cole, you're better at this than I am. So Brandgate. Oh, okay. Also, to start with, at launch of start decks and first booster box, each nation will have 2 buildable decks with different philosophies between the 2 decks.
Okay.
So, and the 5 nations are, you know, there will be a quiz later: Keter Sanctuary, Dark States, Brandgate, Stoichia, and Dragon Empire, of course. That's the one that didn't change. Brandgate is your gateway to the stars, right? That's aliens. It's where this planet, fictional planet where Vanguard takes place. This is their seaport for the stars. And the 2 main decks, both of them are based on, if you're familiar with the Pokemon TCG arena, stadiums.
You did it again.
It's like, so, right, if you in Pokemon TCG you play a stadium, it affects both players. In Brandgate you play a set order. One of them is called a prison. So if you have a prison on your field, and it goes into the set order area, and you play a card that says you can put one of your opponent's cards in prison, then you take something off their field and it goes into your prison. Nice.
So that's the one I played last week.
Yeah.
And then they can pay a cost to get things out of prison, which may be a cost that they want to pay or don't want to pay, depending on whatever their deck build is. Then the other Brandgate deck is Dark Knight, Abyssal Dark Knight. So your set order, basically, you create something that's called a Dark Knight. This second one is like you have to wait a turn to get to the Abyssal Dark Knight. And then when you have those out, you'll have cards that then create tokens. So rather than playing cards from my hand, I get 3 tokens that are like 15k power boosters. I put them in my back row, and now I've got support for attacking you and doing all kinds of things like that. So that's Brandgate. Cole, do one of them while I think of what the
right. I'll do Dragon Empire.
There you go.
So Dragon Empire is kind of like the new main character clan or nation, sorry. And from this, the starter deck focuses around a mechanic that's unique for Dragon Empire, and specifically this deck called Overdress, which is what the whole series is based off of. And basically, you're just leveling up your rear guards by evolving them, essentially. And so you would keep the evolution cards underneath them, kind of like what you do when you ride up on the Vanguard, except that's what happens on the rear guard circles. So that's what is in the starter deck, which it's a really fun mechanic, actually. And then the next one is they're kind of like desert military people. So they're in before the Overdress, they were called Desert Gunners in Narukami. So I don't remember exactly what they're called right now, but I just consider them the Desert Gunners. It's a whole aesthetic that they have. And they're about refilling their field by getting rid of your opponent's field. So it's a big cost in order to refill your field, but you can. It's another kind of control. So Dragon Empire is usually a control clan. They're retiring, getting rid of your opponent's units, and then they're gaining advantage off of that. That's generally what they kind of like to do. So that's them.
All right. Dark states, you have Master of Gravity, which, as Rory was talking about, having your soul. Master of Gravity focuses on getting cards into your soul as much as possible, and it actually does feature some of the units from Pale Moon. And then you get like power-ups based on the number of cards you have in your soul. You want to have like 15 cards in your soul to get the maximum power-up. And then the other Dark States deck is built around what used to be Spike Brothers, the football team. But Cole, what did they do?
Final Rush.
Oh, Final Rush. So yes, you, the player, get into the state of Final Rush. And then as you play cards, if you are in Final Rush, they get power-ups and they get other skills and abilities that go along.
That was the one that appeared in the first episode of Overdrive.
Yeah,
so
that
it's
was
like
Violence Bruce.
You have to wait a turn and then it kicks in or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have to start your turn on while riding or while you've ridden the main boss grade 3. So
and as we're talking about these, so we have the starter decks and the booster box that's coming out afterwards. Do you need anything from the booster box for the starter decks? Like, are they kind of suboptimal, or are they optimal as starter decks, but the booster box just gives you the new set?
That's a fantastic point, because the producer straight up said we want the cards to last in these starter decks, so we're building cards that keep them, or we're making cards that keep them in mind, not necessarily outright replace them, but give you like a different option for them. So you'll have your brand new, they call them ride lines or ride chains in the thing. So it's your 4 main cards of that specific deck, which will be your ride deck basically. And there's extra cards that can float in between either build basically.
Okay.
And so the ride deck for the starter decks already exists in the starter deck. So they just get a couple of upgrade cards specifically for them in the main set. Whereas the other cards, the second build or whatever for each nation is featured in the booster set, and they also have specific cards for them as well.
Okay.
So Cole, do Stoichia. That's more your.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was gonna do. Stoichia. So that is aesthetically, it's weird. It's all over the place. Because basically what it did.
Plants versus Zombies, man.
They smooshed them all together.
I never thought of that before. Plants versus Zombies with Aqua. Anyway, so it's kind of like more of your nature-y sort of feel for them. The starter deck is based around, it's called Sylvan Horned Beast King Magnolia or something like that. But basically, it wants to have a full board, and it allows you to attack from the back row, which you're not normally allowed to do.
That's what I was doing last week.
Yeah. And then in the set, there is the second deck is based around a card called Zorga. Basically, so normally, this is a new addition to Vanguard. They have these things called order cards. So they're not units like normal. They're like spell cards, basically. You can only play one order card per turn. And they do things. But Zorga says he actually lets you play 2 by combining them. A term called Alchemagic. So, and it likes to revive cards from your drop zone that have been retired or whatnot. So it's it's basically spiritual Grand Blue, but not quite. Grand Blue is like Zombie Pirates. It's my favorite deck. So it's like that. I use a lot of orders and a lot of revival. But what the cool thing is that this one actually mixes pretty well with the starter deck. Whereas as long as it doesn't specifically require named cards, you can still call the cards from the drop zone, and because you want to fill your board up with those cards anyway. So like they work very well. Whereas the Brancate ones don't work together at all.
Yeah. They not so much.
2 very distinct.
There is one Brancate card that says as long as you have a world card in your
set order
order card, then it does. So that would work for either one.
That would work for either, but for the majority, it's either or for Brancate, which is really interesting.
So Keter Sanctuary is the main one from the start deck is Bastion. And that's the build that's all around having as many grade 3s as possible out on the field. You want to have 6 grade 3s, and then it gives certain cards will give the grade 3s in the back row the ability to boost. Some will give the ability to intercept. Some will give shield to the grade 3s, which grade 3s typically don't have shield. So you're kind of betting on having a variety of grade 3s out there that will give each other the different skills that you need for them to work together. And then the other Keter Sanctuary is Witches, which, I remember her name was like Hexa Orb.
Yeah, it's Hexa Orb, Sorceress, Hexa Orb, Sorceress, or something like that. Yeah.
What does she do?
She likes to stack triggers. So Bastion likes to stack grade 3s and check grade 3s. She likes to stack triggers. So it's still it still works because you're stacking things, but the way that they go about it is a little different, and what they focus on is a little different. But for the most part, those two would work pretty well together.
Yeah, so I think the Hexa Orb is kind of like the magic term of scry. You look at a certain number from the top, and it's like, how am I going to put it back on top? You want to put triggers on top before you attack, so you know that you're going to get them. Yep. Is that everything? Is that all 5?
That sounds like
we did all 5.
We do have a question from Jos in the chat who says, what are the special Series 1 Festival Collection 2021 boosters?
All right. So
that's a lot of words.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a very Japanese sort of naming convention there. But Special Series 1, which that's just the type of booster that it is. So in Vanguard, you have your main sets, which are your booster sets. And you also have your extra boosters, which are smaller, more condensed sets. And then you have like title boosters, which are their collabs and etc. So Special Series is just a special type of booster set. Festival Collection 2021 is actually what we were talking about earlier. It's where you're going to get 10 new cards for the things that are guaranteed, and it's going to be 2 for every nation. And then it also is going to include reprints of the start deck cards, like important start deck cards in like higher rarity, like shiny cards.
Okay,
so that's
better foil.
Better foil, yeah. So that's really cool. I like how they're doing that.
Entirely unnecessary for an absolute plum like me. But
correct. Yeah. You can buy just the singles that you want for your deck too, because you're gonna buy what eight cards probably if you want to use it in that nation, whatever nation you decide. Mm-hmm. So not necessary, but a really nice, because Vanguard is not known for their reprints. So the fact that right out the gate they're already declaring that they're doing reprints it's a big deal.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Wow,
I've learned so much.
I think you hold the record for the longest episode.
We can talk.
We got more to say.
No, I know.
We'll do part 2 a little bit.
Yeah.
I actually think once we actually get the new decks available and I've got some games under my belt and you all have as well, I think it'd be really nice to sort of like get together again and sort of like do this is an interesting thing, like, see how it's been taken up by the community and see what people are thinking.
So we've got one new player. Yay!
Yeah. I think Jos was an earlier player as well, though, wasn't he? Like, what Jos at least knows what he's doing. He mentioned different groups and stuff last week, so yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to come back and revisit it. It's been great talking about it because it's I really love the game, like for all of the reasons that you mentioned. Before we finish up, is there anything? Because I know, Cole, I think you're making some. You said you were making some notes of things you wanted to make sure you covered in the chat. Is there anything that you want to share with people before we wrap up?
I would say if you're interested, it's literally £4 in order to pick up a deck and try. And honestly, these start decks are not like normal like starter decks. They're actually quite playable.
Yes.
So you can buy a starter deck and get a couple cards from the main set, and you can have a very competitive deck. And the over trigger, which we were talking about before, which is like a fancy mechanic, you don't have to worry about too much. But people thought that those are going to be very expensive, but they're actually guaranteeing 1 over trigger per nation per box. There are 5 of them, and you get 1 per box. So those key cards are going to be actually quite affordable. And
you only need 1 per deck. You can only put 1 in your deck. So
so like that's another like cost, a barrier to entry that Bushiroad's really taking to kind of combat that. So it's not hard to start and actually beef up your deck. So
is that 1 overdress card per nation per booster box, or just 1 per booster box?
It's 1 of the 5 per box. I misspoke.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So you still have to get lucky.
Kind of, but
yeah,
like you get.
but if you have friends, like if you each buy one box, the likelihood that one of you is going to pull the one that you want, and you may pull the one that they want.
Yeah.
Swap back
Also,
and forth.
like I'm thinking of this as a singles because I buy a lot of singles online,
Mhm.
so I can buy a lot of places are going to open them. So if it's one per display box, and I think there's going to be 16 in a case or something like that. No, not 16. Whatever. There's a very high chance that these are going to be very widespread and easily accessible. Probably $1, maybe $2.
And I think they're easy enough to proxy as well.
Yeah,
like
true.
If you're not doing competitive
And
play.
the ones that come in the starter decks as well, because you get one in the starter deck, it's actually quite good too by itself. It's just a different version. It's not as punchy as the other ones, but still quite playable. So
still delightfully ass kicking. Well, tell you, let's wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody, indeed, for watching. We appreciate it greatly. Let us do the social media extravaganza. Will, if people want to hunt you down online.
Oh, just look for washing the sink. I'm washing the sink everywhere. There you go. Wow, you had it ready.
Wow.
How professional.
We don't screw around here, mate. It's all good.
Cool.
Yeah, I tried to be brand consistent, so there you go.
And Cole, yourself?
I'm at Cole_McCune, COLE_MCCUNE. Yeah, there you go.
It's there
Boom.
as well. There is, of course, the Drive Check Twitter feed as well.
Yep.
The latest episode, I think, was from last week. The Dark is not just for Batmen, I think was that's the title.
The Dark Knight is not just for Batmen. Yes. I try to come up with good titles that are quasi-relevant to the discussion. But yeah, we publish every Thursday, our podcast. And I still haven't understood how we did the time slip because we just recorded 260 last night, which should have been our 5-year anniversary, but it's 2 weeks after our 5-year anniversary. And I don't remember missing a week. So we are very consistent about getting an episode out every week.
That's cool. Do give them a follow and do check out the show because it's very good, even if you don't understand a lot about Vanguard, like what I do.
I was going to also say we also stream on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/drive_check, just like the Twitter handle. And like on Thursday and Friday nights, we will stream card fight, like paper card fights, where we have folks from our Discord go and join us, and then we'll do battles that way, so people can watch that just like that. Yeah,
I was actually about to ask, where would you recommend people going to see a game? Because there's lots of recordings, but they're kind of hit or miss.
Yeah,
like the people who are presenting them.
Yeah. So
I'm just going to go and do a quick follow. One moment.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I will give you guys an exclusive that even the folks in our podcast haven't heard. I am working on a YouTube video series that is going to be extremely instructional to the point of being encyclopedic. How do you? Well, you know, like an encyclopedia, where I am literally going to go through like what a card is, what each of the different areas of the card mean, what the different text means, and just like a very laborious review of how you play Vanguard. And
this sounds like it could be very useful for me.
Wow.
Also, how do you only have 114 now, 115 followers? That is horrifying. That an imbecile like me has more followers than you.
Wait, for which?
For Twitch.
Drive Check has 114.
On Twitch?
Yeah.
We only started like a month ago or 2 months ago.
Well, seriously, about a month.
Also, it automatically popped up like with the autoplay from the previous stream, and it was like, why am I allergic to soy? It's just like, what the hell am I going into?
I'm not allergic, just intolerant.
And on that delightful note, Rory, you and I will be back on Friday.
Yes.
We're doing the tag team extravaganza. Is Jos going to be joining us as well?
Yes.
Excellent.
So we're doing, my understanding, we have to confirm it. We're doing 3-player version of Prism Arena.
Oh.
With tag team Ocon. Yeah, we're doing lots of kind of fun, crazy development on our live stream every Friday.
Okay.
And all the while I'm actually thinking of a Prism Arena card game as well.
Oh no!
Oh,
So
that'd be fun.
Some of the things you've been mentioning have been like, huh, that'd be kind of nice.
But you know, Cole and I are always good for a consult on that.
Yeah. I mean,
The fees are very reasonable.
I totally have you in mind. But you love the new stuff we've been doing with the Prison Arena. It's been a ton of fun.
It's good times. It's good times. Cool. So yeah, we'll be back on Friday, 2:00 UK time, which will be 9 a.m. again Eastern Standard. Cole, Will, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it massively,
so much.
and we can't wait to see you again in real life. And
I can't wait.
Harass you. And hey, I'll actually be able to play a game with you this time. Now I know what I'm
the most excited about that.
All right. We'll see you all soon. This is the bit where we wave goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.